To enter into prayer, to enter into prayer, to enter into prayer is to enter into our loving hearts. It is to enter into God itself. Prayer always asks us to come as we are. We don't have to put on a better shirt, fix our hair, sit up straighter. Nothing is required of us than to show up exactly as we are. And in fact, well, maybe I can't say in fact. I think maybe I'll say in truth, the more authentic, the better. When we enter into prayer, there's no be on your good behavior. The more of who and what we can bring exactly as we are, unadorned, without any need to impress, to be good enough. So it's almost impossible for some of us to even imagine this level of acceptance. I don't need to do anything for God. I don't need to look better, sound better, act better, listen better. No. Just as you are, just as I am, we are infinitely worthy, infinitely accepted, infinitely loved, just as we are. So, once again, I welcome you to Prayer on the Air. I am Angela Montano. We come together from 52 different countries now to pray with each other, for each other, regarding anything that concerns us. Personal, planetary, the most trivial thing we put into prayer, the most thing we think of as having tremendous consequences. We put that into prayer. I do consider us a global prayer without ceasing community, not because I'm praying 24/7 without ceasing. That is a state of consciousness I really do pray for. But I'm not there. But the way our podcast is listened to, someone in the world is praying for and with us every single day, every single night of the week. So it's almost like I remember doing track in high school, and I ran on the relay team. I wasn't very good at track. I only did track because I was really into gymnastics, and I thought track would get me in shape for that. But of course, if you do it, you have to participate in something. I just wanted to kind of, I didn't even want to run around the track. I just wanted to walk around the track with my best friend Terry Berry and talk. But we had to pick an event. So I was on the relay team, and you run your section a fourth of the way around the track, and then you give the relay stick to the next person, and it's a really important way you pass it off. And that's kind of what we're doing here, although I really think stress-free. I remember my lungs burning by the time I got the stick to the next person. I would love, our sense of separation from God to be burning off of us as we do this. But always, someone is in a state of communion, contemplation. So that's what I mean when I say our prayer without ceasing community. And I mean, the implications of that alone are just beyond my comprehension. So what are we doing when we're praying? We're opening over and over and over again to wholeness. To it is a perception of wholeness that heals. Fear that grips me, tells me something's missing, something should be that isn't, something is that shouldn't be. And then my thinking mind, the thinking self, offers me up images of my past and future that help concretize me in the fear-based narrative. So I've got concepts going, I got images going in my mind. I don't even realize it. And I'm in my interpretation of life. Oh my God, what's going to happen? And as long as I'm there, I'm missing life. I'm not in life. It's like life once removed, life imagined through false evidence appearing real. That's who I take myself to be. And I'm mesmerized. And I feel righteous. And I go deeper into the story of it all, right? When we pray, we awaken from that. And we get present. I am here now in this room with you praying. And really, there is no past, there is no future. That's just concepts. That's just concepts. That's just thoughts. And there's an immediacy when we let go of those fear-based narratives. And that's when we might notice, oh my God, look at that hummingbird, or wow, I love the laughter of my friend, or maybe we tune into our breath, but we start to experience the intimacy in the immediacy. And from here, we can really open to these extraordinary, beautiful pointings that spiritual teachers, awakened beings have given us, which is something like God is everywhere. God is all there is. I have an orchid on my desk. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, if you're here live. But I was sitting in my chair about to see a client in person, and I looked over at the orchid, and it's been in my office for about 3 weeks, and I saw it for the first time. The lime green and the fuchsia. It's a white orchid, and I had looked at it, white orchid, but it's got this pale pink and this luminous like lime green. And see, that's the problem with the mind, right? My mind categorized this as a white orchid. So I have an idea about myself. I like bright colored orchids. I like the fuchsia and the coral, and right? So probably that idea, right, that who I take myself to be, I may never have really met the white orchid because already I've categorized it as something I dismiss, even though I love orchids. But in the immediacy of prayer, in the immediacy of the moment, I stepped out of my once removed interpretation of life, and I met life, and I saw this orchid for the first time. And I love it so much. I hadn't even loved it before. And now I love it. And I will never look at a white orchid the same. The green. How could I have missed that fuchsia in the middle and the pale pink on the leaves? So see, when we pray, we meet what is. We meet the love that is outside of fear. It's a wonderland. And there's just so much. I mean, there's more blessings than we can even count. So this is what we're always doing when we're praying. We're always communing with the presence. And we could even say the present. The present. Where do we experience the presence? God is everywhere in the present. But again, we've got to get through that. For me, it feels sometimes like an obstacle course. My mind is like an obstacle course. You know, I've got so many ways to dismiss the beauty that is. Right? So that's why we just always want to see through prayer about the possibility of living in the love, living in the love, living in the I am loved. And what's so fascinating, what we began with, I am loved, if we can live in the I am loved, a lot of the fear-based ideas almost fall away on their own. It's more like they let go of us more than we let go of them, because when we're in the truth that we're loved, all these reasons to dismiss this, to discount that, all these ego ranking things we do, these are my preferences, this is what I like and I don't, and they just sort of aren't needed anymore. They just aren't needed anymore. So, the way this podcast works is I take prayer requests. Again, nothing too small, nothing too great, to place into prayer. And then everyone listening, whenever you're listening, whenever you happen to be listening, your job, if you will, is to enter into a state of love, into a state of awareness, wholeness. You're born to pray in truth. You're born to hold space of well-being, of wholeness for others. And that's what you're doing on behalf of every prayer request. And listen, really deeply listen for the answered prayer for you. You cannot pray for another person and not be actually blessed by the prayer yourself. Now, you might not have a literal relationship to what the prayer request is, but we are one, and there is always a connection. There is always a way we're uplifted when we pray. I had a lot of interesting, phenomenal things happen in 1994 when I began my prayer practice for other people. I had very, very, very little money at the time. I was just barely making ends meet. At the end of the month, I might pay my bills and have $3.50 left over. So, it was very, very financially, I had to be so efficient at the time. And I remember having a client, one of my first 3 clients. I had 3 clients when I began. And this woman desperately wanted to go to New York City to see her son in a performance. And we turned it over. And, I did my best as the practitioner, knowing she was living an infinite possibility. And that possibility is there. In God, there's a way. God makes a way out of no way. We did our work together in faith, and wonderfully it happened. She got to New York. And about 2 weeks later, I have just the dearest friend from college, Rachel. And while I was just barely getting by as my fledgling spiritual counseling, life was beginning, she was just making bank as a lawyer in Georgia, and she was social chairman for her, California, for her, Atlanta Bar Association. And she got to go to places and check out the hotels before the whole Lawyers Association would come. And she sent me a free ticket to come with her to New York to check out some fabulous hotel where there's champagne waiting for us and they're wining and dining us. I'm obviously not a lawyer. And I had the weekend of my life in New York. I had a lot of those things that it wasn't what I was praying for, but then I got blessed just strangely as well. And that's very literal blessings. A lot of times the blessings we receive when we pray for someone else are, far more subtle than that. I think I was given those kind of gross examples, those very literal examples early on, so I would catch what I'm talking about, I would get it. So, again, like Thomas Merton says, the extraordinary monk, there's not one single prayer, there's not one single prayer that is prayed where nothing happens or nothing occurs. Not one. He said, but there are many prayers that are prayed where nothing is perceived, thought, or felt occur. The subtle energy of this love that is beyond our comprehension is always activated through prayer. But I might be too dense in my perceptions and my thinking to catch it. And I know I quote that I quote that quote a lot here, and every single time I do, I need to hear it again. Because my ego, ego always wants to dismiss that we have this kind of intimate immediacy with source energy. In a twinkling of an eye, a shift from fear to love can occur. And again, it's in what we talked about in the beginning, just you are loved. You're being loved right now. You are being actively loved. It's not like you're stamped loved. We loved you in 1984, and you just go on that. No, now the aliveness of this love is occurring. But if I'm caught in thought, right? If I'm living once removed in my interpretation of life, my story about my life, and I'm now in the divided mind, I've created my custom-made hell realm, Prayer can always bring us back. We can say back to the beginning, back to before the beginning. It's kind of like that false sense of self. It's almost like we're reading a book, turning the pages, we're in the problem-oriented way of being. And prayer's like we can turn away from that. Oh, that's only a story. What is? What is right now? My breath, your breath. This air that's all around me. What's so amazing about air? All these, I'm thinking of this argon gas in air, and they say that the way these kind of innocuous gases circulate the planet, that like right now I am actually breathing, and you're breathing even the air Gandhi breathed, or the Buddha breathed. Like what's in the air we're breathing? Like that alone could call us into the here, into the now, into with God for me, nothing can be against me, into this state of communion.